So if we start thinking about adverts, the way to find these is obviously job boards. There are a ton of these in the UK and they all operate more or less the same way. I like to focus on Indeed only because that is the biggest one in the UK and it shows how to actually use a job website effectively. Now what most people will do when using these websites is simply put maybe a job title into the aggregator or maybe even just a term like marketing, which is why it tends to be so frustrating, because what that will do is throw everything up on the screen that might be remotely associated with that job title. So what we want you to do is do something slightly different and use something called a Boolean string. Without getting too technical, a Boolean string acts as instructions rather than search terms. So you'll see I've got some examples up on the screen. If you use and in capital letters between marketing and assistant, what that will do is rather than search for everything with the word marketing and everything with the word assistant in, it looks for everything with those two specific words. Similarly, if you use speech marks like I have there with graduate marketing executive, what that does is look for nothing but that specific phrase. This is a way to use these search engines to your advantage and be very focused in your search. The more focused you are, the more relevant entries you'll actually find come up on the screen and the more effective you will be when job searching. And here is a list of your instructions. Quotes can be really powerful, like I just said, they look for a specific phrase. Brackets are a way to broaden out your search but still keep it quite focused. So you can construct quite long and quite detailed searches. And or pretty much do exactly what they say, combine terms or look for, again, broader terms themselves. And not you can use to exclude something from a search. So for example, if you do not want manager in a job title. If you use these and experiment with them, you can make these job boards and make these search engines work really, really hard for you without having to put too much effort in. To show you how powerful this can be, I've got two examples up on the screen. On the right hand side, I've just done what most people do. I've put marketing into Indeed and that spat out 610 jobs, most of which, I'll be honest, were not relevant at all. So that I would have to sift through and decide each one, is this relevant, is this relevant? That is why this can take so long and be really frustrating. On the left hand side, all I've used is and, marketing and graduate, and you'll see 19 jobs, all of which are relevant. This is how you can make your job search that much easier. If you can experiment with the terms that I've shown you today, find out what's working for you, find out how many jobs you're getting on each search term, the most relevant ones, and then once you have that, create your email alert for that job search and done. You've automated probably the hardest part of this entire process and get a significant amount of a return on investment on this time that you're putting in. This again is how you can maximize your job search and make it work for you. In addition to the general job boards like Indeed and Total Jobs, you want to add to your rotation the specialist job boards that are devoted to a specific type of job. And this is where we'll introduce the idea of a rotation. What you need to be doing when you're searching for a job is almost plan out your week so that every day you will be doing something slightly different. So on Monday, you might be checking in with your general job boards. On Tuesday, you might be looking at the specialist vacancy job boards. On Wednesday, it might be doing a little bit of networking. You want to do a little bit of lots of different things. You want to go multi-channel. Now, when it comes to specialist job boards, the reason they're important is that some employers will use these job boards and nothing else. They won't put anything on Indeed or Total Jobs. A good example might be jobs.ac.uk. If you know that you're interested in working for a university, you need to be checking that website because nearly all universities in the UK put their jobs on there and some don't even use any other resources. I'll show you later on in this video how to find these job boards. It's going to come down to a little bit of your own research and we have a few hacks later on in the video, but these are really powerful and you need to add them to your rotation. In addition, you'll want to be checking in with specific employers. The idea here is you want to build a target list of companies that you want to check in with regularly to see what they have available, what they have on their own websites. Some employers will not even use job boards at all, which is why it's really important to check them regularly. Again, as part of your rotation, maybe once a week, check in with your individual employers, which ones you're actually interested in working for. You might be wondering at this point, well, how do I actually find those employers? If I were to ask you what are the big employers in your sector, you might know most, if not all of them, but the smaller employers, those SMEs, how would you find that out? There is a really simple hack that you can use that will make this part of your job search, again, really easy. Use Google. What most people will do to find these employers is, let's say construction, they'll put construction into Google, see what comes up. That can be useful. However, if you switch to the Maps tab, you'll see on the screen I've done just that, and all of a sudden I've got a target list of all the construction firms in and around Manchester. You can do this for any geography, whether it's London, Bristol, wherever, if you want to look at different places to actually work. But you'll see this is really, really powerful. It gets you a target list straight away of companies that you can then check back with regularly. Do they have any jobs available? Again, takes the sting out of your job search, makes this that little bit easier. The next thing you'll want to add to your rotation are graduate job websites. There are a number of these. Prospects is possibly one of the best known, and you'll see Prospects actually hosts graduate jobs on its website, which can be really useful. But another reason that it's a goldmine for a job search is because of the job profiles, one of which you'll see on the screen here. Now, this is useful from one perspective for the information. It will tell you a lot of what you might not already know about the role, what to expect, working hours, things like that. But if you go down to the employers section, what it will do is tell you first of all who is going to employ you, which can be helpful for finding those employers, but also give you some resources on where to find those specific jobs. If you remember back at the start of the video, I talked about those specialist job boards. This is how to find them. This is a really easy way of finding those specialist job boards and then adding them to your rotation. You'll also want to add target jobs to your rotation. Probably the best known graduate job website in the UK. Hosts a lot of graduate schemes on there, but also general graduate jobs as well. So a really useful resource to be checking in with regularly. Which brings us to recruitment agencies. Now, recruitment agencies can be useful, but you have to approach them with a very specific mindset. The first thing to think about is, like your own job search, the more specific they are in terms of sector or even employer, the more effective they're going to be. But the thing to remember about them is that they are incentivized not to get you a job, but to find someone for their client, who is the employer. They do not work for you. So treat them with that in mind, in the sense that don't take what they say at face value. They might well say, for example, we have your CV, so we will keep you in mind for the next role that comes up. They simply won't, because give it a week and they'll have forgotten about you. That doesn't mean you can't use them, but contact them regularly. Telephone them regularly to say, what do you have available? Do you have anything that's relevant? Keep at them, because what they will do if you just leave them alone is put your CV in a folder and never speak to you again. Just keep them with that in mind. It can be useful to use them, but do not rely on them. They are one part of your rotation, nothing more. So, at the end of your rotation, if you're doing this right, you should be applying to a fair few different roles. Certainly finding a lot of different roles to apply to. It is always a good idea to keep a diary, keep a record of what you've actually applied to. First of all, to avoid that horrible feeling of when you get a call from a recruiter, an employer, and they say, we're calling you about this job, and you have to say, which one? Never goes across well. But also, you want to keep a record of your own activity. If you do this right, you can see at a glance what's working for you, what isn't, what resources are actually coming up with jobs that you actually apply to. If you're applying for things but you're not getting any kind of feedback, does that mean your applications aren't strong enough? If you're getting interviews, but they're not progressing to the next stage. Does that mean your interview technique isn't good enough? You can actually be quite self-reflective and improve your job search by seeing what works and what doesn't. This brings us to the end of this section. Thanks very much for watching. Really hope it was helpful. As always, if you could like and subscribe so we can grow the channel and reach more students, that would be really helpful. And coming up in the next section, we'll be talking about the hidden job market and that dreaded word, networking.